Hey guys, this is Andrew from Tenco Hydro, and these are all of the components to a skimmer mechanism. So if you have a skimmer mechanism and you're looking to maintain it or replace or upgrade your skimmer mechanism, this could be a great video, great way to spend a couple of minutes to learn about every component of the machine that you might have. So what is a skimmer mechanism? If you have a scum concentrator or a DAF, rectangular or circular, or if you have a clarifier, especially a rectangular clarifier, you have a skimmer mechanism. People also call them chain and flight, and they basically scrape the scum or the sludge off the surface of the water in a tank. So down here you see is an image of a very basic setup for a skimmer mechanism. There are several components. There is the drive mechanism, which is one part of the skimmer mechanism, and this is the part it's right behind this drive guard. We're going to go in depth on exactly every component in here and why we need to be looking at them. But this is the drive mechanism right here. This is what drives the skimmer mechanism. Here's a quick video, just to kind of see that's the drive mechanism in motion. Here's the motor and the gear reducer, drive and driven sprocket, and when that is turning and operating correctly, then the sprockets and the skimmer mechanism, as you can see, are operating correctly. And there is one skimmer blade that just scraped up the beach, and it's going to keep going along its journey, and the next one is going to come any moment now. There is the next one. So the skimmer blades, they scrape up the beach with the skimmer wipers, and the drive mechanism is what moves this entire machine. This is one of our tanks. This is a trapezoidal scum concentrator. So we're going to go more into detail for everything, but for the drive mechanism, here are the main components. You've got a motor and a gear reducer. If these are getting warm, getting overly hot, or if they're running intermittently, those might be some reasons to look at replacement, but generally speaking, motors and gear reducers sized appropriately should last for decades. Should last for 10, 20, 30 years. Might make sense to replace them as they age, but there isn't a lot that can go wrong if it's the right size. After the motor and the gear reducer, there is the drive sprocket and of course the mounting for the drive mechanism itself. Which again shouldn't be much of a maintenance thing, maybe replacing a couple of bolts and screws, but then after that you've got the drive sprocket and the driven sprocket and the shear pin and the drive chain. You want to keep this drive chain tight, so you might look to make sure you have the right number of links in here. You might look to take out or add a link to make sure that this is tightly moving around both of these. Nothing super crazy with tension, but you definitely want to have tension here. You don't want this to be a lagging chain. And the driven sprocket and the drive sprocket, the teeth don't typically wear out if designed appropriately from the beginning. So the teeth being where the roller chain falls in between. Basically, you want them to fall in between the teeth, not rubbing up against the teeth. It's kind of the basics of a skimmer mechanism. These two things shouldn't really need replacing too much. The shear pin is the one thing in the whole drive mechanism that might need maintenance or attention. What the shear pin does is if some part of the mechanism is experiencing too much torque, the shear pin will shear, it will break, and then what happens after it breaks is this drive mechanism moves now independently of the skimmer mechanism. And the purpose of this breaking, when something goes wrong, is it's the cheapest thing to replace. If this is not a shear pin, but is instead a solid screw or a solid rod, for example, if something goes wrong, then something more expensive is going to break. Maybe the motor will seize. Maybe this will struggle to drive through something, and all sorts of things can happen. So putting something in here that does not have the right torque rating is going to cause the next weakest link in the chain to break. And it could be different things for different circumstances. But we highly recommend having the right shear pin in here. Now, shear pins come in different necks, they call them. Come in basically different sizes. There's many of this size, and then the torque rating of them can be different. And so if you have a shear pin that's breaking all the time, let's say it's breaking every 2 months or every 30 days, that would be quite often. One thing that we could consider is we could neck up, we could increase the torque rating of the shear pin. If it's breaking every 1 to 2 years, or maybe 2 to 5 years, then we would say that's probably good life for a shear pin. So you're probably going to want to just keep the same that you have. So that's kind of the general rule of thumb. If you're breaking them, more frequently, we can consider necking up, and we are going to be checking the torque rating of each different mechanism and different sizes and all sorts of different things. But that would be the one thing. I would not recommend putting a bolt or a screw in here. I know some people do that, and it only causes more expensive problems. We'd really like to troubleshoot the shear pin if we can. So, okay. That is the drive mechanism. After you go inside the drive mechanism, then you've got the drive guard, which sits outside of the drive mechanism, and the driven sprocket on the drive mechanism attaches to the shaft. This is the shaft here, which is usually keywayed and set screwed with often matching keys. And you've got this bearing, and then you're going into the tank. So after you have seen everything on the drive mechanism, then you've got these skimmer components. I'm going to let this run while we're talking. So these are the components that actually skim the sludge and the scum. You've got the chain, which can be NH78 chain, which is pictured here. It can be steel or stainless steel roller chain. That's definitely an upgrade for more corrosive environments, and we'd probably recommend that. You'd get a longer life, of course, out of 6-inch pitch stainless steel roller chain would be one standard that we would have. But you've got the chain, you've got the head and the tail shaft. These are typically nowadays stainless steel. They can be carbon steel and they just wear out more frequently, so we typically go with stainless steel. So both the head and tail shaft, and then the sprockets have 4-inch hubs, and that's connected. That's keywayed and set screwed here and here. Those are connected to the shaft, so you've got stainless steel on steel, and that's keywayed. And then we usually do UHMW teeth on the sprockets. We can do fully stainless steel sprockets. We can do cast iron sprockets, lots of different things. This is for now our standard. We find it to be the best for wear purposes, where if you need to replace just these teeth, you can. But it's not really a common wear item. But it certainly is a lot cheaper to replace these UHMW teeth every once in a while when compared to a fully stainless steel sprocket. And we can do both, but we find this to be the sweet spot for that. So you've got sprockets, shaft, chain, and then you've got the skimmer blade and the wiper. The wiper is this white part, and then the skimmer blade is, of course, the steel part. The skimmer blade comes a little bit as an assembly. You can see kind of right here, there's a backing strip. And the purpose of the whole blade mechanism is to just to have the white part of it scraping along the beach like this. And then the metal part, of course, doesn't touch. There's no metal on metal contact as you're scraping. So if you're getting metal on metal contact, it might have something to do with the tension in the chain. If you have wiper blades like this that are very stiff or curled and they're not flexible in any way when you touch them, that would be an indication to replace them. You want to have these be a little bit flexible. As for everything that's a stainless steel component, we wouldn't think you would have too many problems. Even if something is a little bit bent for some reason or another, you could quite possibly bend it back. Now, if you're upgrading the entire skimmer mechanism, it might make sense to get new skimmer blades, but that if this is all made of stainless steel, there shouldn't be too much in terms of a needed replacement. But if this is carbon steel, then we can start thinking, or if it's iron or something else, then that would be something where you'd be more thinking about a replacement sooner than 30 years. But yes, the wiper blades are definitely a maintenance item on this part of the list. You have a head shaft and a tail shaft with most skimmer mechanisms. Sometimes you have more than that, but the head shaft is where the beach is, or it's the head. And it's usually the one that's connected to the drive mechanism. And in this case, you can see, if you go picture by picture, this is what the blade does. Is it scrapes over the beach and into wherever you're holding your scum, and then the blade flips up if it's fixed. If not, it's hinged, then it does something different. But this is what the head shaft does. This is how you'd identify the head shaft. Tail shaft is at the other end of the unit, and as I said before, it's got a UHMW sprocket and a shaft, an H78 chain, stainless steel hubs. This is our standard. We can make these out of many different materials, but we find those to be best. Here is the skimmer blade and the wiper, and then in this case we have an NH78 and F2 attachment link. This is a trapezoidal scum concentrator, and if it's a trapezoidal shape, we're much more likely to have an F2 attachment link. If it is a rectangular scum concentrator, then we're much more likely to have this type of an attachment link, which is a K2, and usually it's one hand, left hand, right hand is what they would call it. So this is a universal attachment link, and we would usually get just the one side on this side, and we might cut this side off, or we might order it as you see it here, where it's just got the one link on the one side. This picture is an F2 attachment link. It's just how the skimmer blades attach. So very minor difference. But these are certainly maintenance items. These are about $50 a piece. And if you're going to replace one, it probably makes sense to replace both of them on every one skimmer blade. Every one skimmer blade has two of these. So this is something where just through normal operation and maintenance, as little things go bump in the night, these chain links might need replacing. If it's stainless steel, then it's much less likely to need any replacing, and we can certainly retrofit that for the vast majority of our tanks and for probably most others. So you do have options if you're ever looking to upgrade. Now, continuing with the tail shaft, going to the outside of the tank, the tail shaft has take-up frames, which allows you to adjust for tension and adjust for alignment. So the entire tail shaft itself, you want it to be properly aligned. You don't want it to be on any type of angle. You want it to be straight across the tank, and the take-up frames allow you to do that. We do typically these will come preset if you're ordering a new tank. If you're installing a skimmer mechanism, this is something that you'd want to check. The best way to check this is certainly one way, is to check the distance from this part of the take-up frame to the start of the bearing. And that is a good check to do. The best way to check is to check from one side tail shaft to the other side head shaft, and then this side tail shaft to the other side head shaft. You make a big X, and you check those measurements. How long are those two lines of the X? If they're the same, then that's the best way to confirm that you are properly aligned. If they are not the same, then you probably have some adjustment to do one way or another using this part of the take-up frame. This part. We do make our tanks in different sizes. Here are two scum concentrators just for example, where we can make a rectangular tank. We can make DAFs and clarifiers as well, and we can advise on skimmer mechanisms for those. But most notably, difference between a rectangular and a trapezoidal tank in regards to a skimmer mechanism is the rectangular tank has two sprockets, whereas the trapezoidal tank actually has four sprockets total for a rectangular tank. For a trapezoidal tank, you've got 4 sets, so a total of 8 sprockets. You've got some idler sprockets to keep the right shape in order to get the best performance. So, yeah, those are the idler sprockets. There's your take-up frame right there. Yeah, now rectangular tank has chain hold downs. It's just kind of pieces of steel that guide the chain. So the whole purpose of both of these skimmer mechanisms is to glide up the beach in the right way. You want to glide up such that you're getting the maximum amount of scum out. You're not getting a whole bunch of water. And so the way that you glide up the beach is very important, hence the idler sprocket here and the hold downs here. You can see here, this is an example of an idler sprocket. This is the head side idler shaft and sprocket. So this would be for a trapezoidal tank. Here is your head shaft. And then here is your idler sprocket to keep the right shape. And then as for the tail shaft, here is your idler sprocket, and here is your tail shaft. Please feel free to reach out with any questions you might have about spare parts, upgrading your tank, or anything else you'd like to talk about regarding skimmer mechanisms and fabrication of custom tanks.